Hello everyone, welcome to Tuesday Tea Time. I haven't been here for a while. Feels funny, I used to do this every single week, and now here I am. It's been, I think, a couple of months since I've done a tea time, so welcome to Tea Time. I'm out here at Plum Pond. I'm with my boys, Ari and Atlas and Ocasio. They just woke up from a nap, and I think they might give us a little bit of something to talk about here. Ari's the one facing us. Ari is my stallion, and he's a little bit grumpy right now because it's springtime, and he can see all the mares across the valley, but he can't get to them. So he's just here with his boys, and springtime can be a really rough time of year for stallions. Particularly stallions that don't have breeding rights, as Ari does not. You can see him right now. He's looking out across the valley at my neighbor's farm where there's quite a few mares. And, you know, he's a very sensible stallion. I am going to keep him a stallion for the moment, but it is interesting watching him have to sort of go through the cycles that happen with hormones and seasons and all the rest. That wasn't actually what I was going to talk about today, but it does fit in nicely. I thought that maybe he and Atlas were going to mix it up a little bit, but Atlas is a gelding now, so Atlas is no longer a stallion. Hello Rebecca, welcome from Austria. I'm glad you're here for tea time. So because Atlas is no longer a stallion, he doesn't have as much testosterone in his system, he's willing to walk away from an argument, and that's what he just did. So Ari went to have a little bit of a playtime with him, or a fight, I don't know which. But the interesting thing is that clearly Ari and Atlas have a different idea of what play is. Because when Ari went to initiate a little bit of a push into Atlas's space, Atlas just walked away. And I find that for the most part, they get along really well right now. And that is because only one of them is a stallion, Ari right here behind me. And Atlas, who's over there in the distance, and Ocasio, they're both willing to walk away or walk past any interaction that feels too intense. And so today I thought I wanted to talk about that a little bit from the perspective of us as humans working with horses, and what that means, whether they think we are playing with them or whether they think we are fighting with them. The way that I differentiate the two is play is where you push into each other's space and both of you enjoy it. So both of you feel like this is a fun thing to do. And you know that because you stay. Fight, on the other hand, fight is where one or the other partner doesn't think it's fun anymore, and either they're going to escalate until the other one moves away, or they're going to take the initiative to move past or away the pressure. So, you know, this is a spectrum, and this is a spectrum I think about a lot because I choose to train without any tools, and so that means my horses have the freedom to walk away anytime they want. And if they walk away, yes, I could chase after them, I suppose, and I might be able to change their mind. I might say, play with me. I mean, it'll be fun, I promise. And as I push into their space, I might be able to convince them to stay. If I don't have a fence that I can push them up against, and if I don't have a way of scaring them, startling them, like with a flag or something like that, if I don't have a sort of tool it's unlikely I'm going to be able to get them to stay if they think I'm picking a fight. And this is a spectrum. So each one of them, there's Ari there, each one of them gets to decide what feels like play and what feels like a fight. And my job then is to interact with them on those terms. So I was just filming this morning, and I filmed a little bit with all three of them, and I brought out a ball to play with today, which was kind of fun. I'm going to try and post this video on my Patreon group later on this week. But this was a little bit of experimentation for me. In the springtime, it's a rough time of year for a lot of horses. It seems like it should be good, but the weather's changing a lot. It goes from hot to cold to hot to cold. We just had a lot of rain and a lot of wind where I live. It results in horses that are either very tired because they're not getting as much sleep with the weather changes. In my case, the horses are feeling like they just want to eat grass now. They're not eating any hay, but the grass doesn't have a whole lot of nutrition yet. And so they're a little hungry. And then you add to that the fact that one of them's a stallion and there's mares across the valley that he can't get to. So he's a little frustrated. It can be a really rough time of year for the horses to adapt to the weather changes through the spring. So what do we do with that? We notice that when their stress is higher, their comfort zone's going to be smaller. And that's just normal and natural and fine. But it means that if I go ahead and I walk into the space and I have something like, this ball here that I'm going to kick around the space, how do they feel about that? Do they want to get away from it? Are they curious about it? Do they ignore it? Do they think of it as play? Do they think of it as fight? How do I know the difference? How do I evolve my game so that it's a game they want to play? So this is what I was filming about this morning, which was kind of fun. And I think that it's a topic that we could all think about a little bit when we interact with our horses. Now, when you put a halter or a bridle on them, this is a really interesting thing because they can't really run away anymore. But you will notice whether they are easy to be around or difficult to be around. For example, when you're leading them somewhere, a lot of people get frustrated when the horses throw their shoulder into your space. So if they can't walk away because they think the thing that you're doing isn't fun, then what's left is to either push into your space, that would be fight more than you like, so that maybe you go away. And you can sort of get through this fight. How do you know if it's a fight or a game? The answer is, does it escalate or does it de-escalate? Okay, so does it get better or does it get worse? Do they get easier to be around or do they get increasingly more difficult to be around? So, where this gets a little bit tricky again is if you have tools with a horse, if you've got a halter or bridle on them, you might be able to think, well, I'm training them to yield their shoulder when I'm leading them, and they'll learn this, and then we're going to get along really well. And that training is a game. We're going to play a game to train them to yield their shoulder around me so they don't hit me with their shoulder when I'm leading them. That's all good until you realize that they get really dull, and all of a sudden it takes a lot of pressure to get them to do something. And then what you know, as they get more and more dull, you know that they would have left if they could. Since they couldn't leave, they tried to fight. If they can't fight, they start to shut down and ignore you. And that's the cycle that happens a lot for people when they're working with tools. Now, I don't work with tools. I work out here in the pasture, out in their home. This is where I work. And, you know, the ball that I chose to work with today it could be considered a tool. Absolutely. You know, I could startle with them with this. This could be a training tool, and it is in a sense. But what I'm going to really try and do is I'm going to try and work closer to the fences than they are, so they have plenty of room to walk away. And if they walk away, I know the way that I was using this seemed more like fight to them than play. So that means, do I need to go farther away? Do I need to do it softer? Do I need to play more gently? How do I need to play the game differently so that they want to stay? If they don't want to stay, I'm not playing it right. And that's the thing I think that really differentiates the game, the play from the fight. Play is all about adapting, making it softer, making it smaller, making it more gentle, making it whatever it needs to be until the horse wants to participate. They want to stay, they want to do something with you. If you have a horse that's trying to leave, you're going to need things like your halter and your lead rope to stop them from leaving, or your round pen, or your pocket full of high value food rewards. That's also going to stop them from leaving, and it's going to allow you to put a little bit more pressure on them. When you can put more pressure on them, you can do more training. You can teach them to do more things. That's the benefit of being able to put more pressure on them. I'm not opposed to pressure. I think that pressure can be great. I actually think a good fight can be great too. The question is, when you're done with that fight, do you feel better for it? Both you and the horse, or do you feel worse? And the way I categorize that is, if you feel better, they will be easier to be around, and they will not be dull and ignoring you, okay? Sometimes horses get tired and they need a rest. And at that point, yes, they're going to be dull and ignoring you. And we're going to allow for that. That doesn't necessarily mean you did something wrong. Sometimes they just need a rest. But if they're well rested, they don't need a rest, they're easy to be around, but they're really dull, that tells you at some point they kind of wished they could have walked away, or they could have pushed you away, because the game you were playing was more like a fight than a game to them. So those are my thoughts on the subject. As I said, I'm going to go ahead and post a video in my Patreon group this week about this, sort of showing this in action, this understanding of the difference between a game and a fight. And Lou says, love this, Elsa, very relevant for Milo. Yep, I can imagine Milo's got some opinions about playing versus fighting, and it's fun when you got a horse that has some ideas about this, because then you get to really get to know them, and you get to shape your training to what's comfortable for them. I am also going to be doing a salon in the Patreon group. If you guys want to join, I'll post a link to the Patreon group. You can join and become a member so you can get access to that. We're going to be talking on Thursday at noon about herd dynamics and helping horses integrate with each other. This is a subject that's very interesting to me, that I've been thinking a lot about lately. So if you have some questions about that, or you want to be part of that discussion, I call this freedom-based learning, and I try and hold them every month or so in the Patreon group, and I'd love you guys to join me there if you're interested. So that is tea time for today. Thank you guys. It's always fun to share a beautiful Tuesday afternoon in the springtime. There's Ari and the pond. And Ocasio and Atlas in the distance. Yeah, Julie, I'm looking forward to the herd dynamics conversation too. Thank you guys for joining me for tea time. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you guys later on.